Good morning, everyone. Please rise for the national anthem, which will be sung by biological science major Elaine Ficara. Afterwards, please remain standing for the invocation by Rabbi Isabel DeConnick, Executive Director of Drexel Hillel.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
The air is getting cooler and crisper. Students again fill Lancaster Walk. Labs hum with new research. Passion and ideas flow through campus as fast and hot as a good cup of Saxby's coffee. The new academic year has arrived. Blessed is all that has brought us life and sustained us and allowed us to reach this day. We gather today as a university community to welcome the new year. Let us pause humbly for a moment of reflection, gratitude, and dedication. Let us be present to the now, making it to this moment, whether it is the start of your first year of college or your 40th year on faculty, is a great accomplishment. For each of us, the journey to now has been filled with challenging obstacles, wild successes, and painful setbacks. We have been nurtured and mentored, offered rare opportunities and gracious second chances. We have experienced moments of tremendous support and times of loneliness and isolation. Our journeys to now have been marked with joy, laughter, grief, anguish, contentment, and awe. Whether the path to now has always been clear or whether it was long and winding, we give thanks for arriving to this new beginning and for all the people, communities, and institutions who have made this new beginning possible. As we turn from this moment to all of the glorious moments ahead of us, let us look to our sources of inspiration, wisdom, humility, and blessing to help us bring our best selves and the best version of this university community into the new year. This new year brings the welcome return of many more opportunities for in-person learning and community. May each of us find great joy in rekindling these connections, and may we all engage generously and kindly with each other as we navigate our differing personal needs and approaches to connecting face-to-face. May we each bring unbounding curiosity to all our pursuits within and beyond the classroom, and may that curiosity lead to academic innovation, empathetic teaching, and deeply engaged learning. May we have the courage to take a stand and share honestly and openly of our own wisdom, values, and experiences. And may we have the humility to listen to stories that challenge our perceptions and to hear perspectives that make us uncomfortable. May this be a year where we embrace making sacrifices and taking risks, not just for the sake of intellectual achievement or financial gain, but for the sake of love, of justice, of healing, and community. As we engage in our rigorous academic pursuits, our joyous forays into building lifelong relationships, and our ambitious efforts to leave this campus and our world better than we found it, may we be blessed with the tools and resources we need to sustain our bodies, minds, and spirits, and may we be a community who offers praise to those who model the vital role of self-care. Art, science, and industry, the three pinnacles of the Drexel Triangle. My father was an architect who liked to wax poetically about the strength of triangles, extolling their virtuous qualities, particularly for building bridges. So dear students, faculty, administrators, staff, trustees, and friends, I hope that in this new year, above all else, that we are able to access the blessings of strength, innovation, and bridge building of our Drexel Triangle. I hope that our work and play on campus are filled with collaborations that bring the various sides of our triangle together, and that we use the strength inherent in this triangle to build bridges that will carry us all forward to a future of peace, justice, and blessing. May we all go forward from strength to strength. Please be seated.
Good morning, everyone. So good to be together. To all new and returning students, faculty, professional staff, and our chair, Rich Greenewalt, gathered here today on beautiful Corman Quad, it is so great to see all of you here. To everyone attending Convocation virtually, I'm glad you can join us too. As we begin a new academic year, it's wonderful to be able to work and learn together in person again. And while it may feel strange to be gathering outside for Convocation, it also broadens our perspective. We can see that Drexel University is thriving in so many ways. Our campus is more beautiful and vibrant than ever. We continue to grow more civically and economically engaged as partners with our neighbors in Mantua and Powelton Village and throughout Philadelphia. We are setting new records for research expenditures. We are welcoming 2 cohorts of phenomenally talented undergraduate and graduate students determined to build a better world. We have never been better equipped to offer all of our students transformational learning and life experiences, along with amazing opportunities to translate aspirations into action and to become the innovators and leaders of the future. And as today's keynote speeches will illustrate, Drexel University is in the vanguard of innovation at a moment when we need innovative solutions more than ever. We are contending with a public health catastrophe of an unrelenting pandemic that has killed 700,000 Americans and more than 4.5 million people worldwide, with people of color and lower income people bearing a disproportionate brunt. We are confronting the heavy burden of racism with the determination to root out racial bias within our university and across society. And seeing Hurricane Ida turn Philadelphia's expressways into rivers brought home the existential threat of climate change, as devastating droughts, wildfires, and floods are occurring with greater intensity and frequency. These realities are daunting, but they're not insurmountable. As the brilliant climate change leader and visionary Christiana Figueres said, "No reality is set in stone. It can be changed." As the United Nations lead negotiator for multilateral climate change agreement, Figueres also kept a framed motto on her wall. Impossible is not a fact, it's an attitude. she ought to know. Through 6 years of sheer persistence, Figueres became the chief architect and driving force behind the Paris Global Accords. Impossible is not a fact, nor is it in Drexel's DNA. Innovation is in our DNA. And if we are going to accomplish the greatest possible good for society, then each of us, as faculty, students, professional staff, trustees, and members of this community, must strive to become outstanding innovators. While successful innovators exhibit several traits, each of us could do well to cultivate 3 essential principles to guide our work. First, although it starts with I, innovation, as you'll hear this morning, is a team enterprise. In the last century, Bell Labs became a premier hotbed of innovation by assembling teams of eminent physicists, material scientists, engineers, and metallurgists. Collaborating in close quarters, these scientists helped to create the world we live in by inventing the transistor and driving major advances in lasers, fiber optics communication systems, satellites, and cellular telephony. Bell Labs' heyday as an innovation powerhouse is sort of ancient history now. Drexel's best days for reimagining and reinventing the future lie in front of us. The second quality that all outstanding innovators share, they recognize the vital role that failure plays in learning, discovery, and eventual success. The greater or more complex the problem, the more we need to test, challenge, and hold one another accountable. But we also need to make room for failure. The third quality that successful innovators share, an unwavering cultivation of diversity and inclusion. Put simply, innovation flourishes when people with diverse backgrounds and perspectives can thrive in a welcoming and inclusive environment. These are challenging and yet very exciting times. As we relearn how to live and work together, embracing these principles will help us flourish together. Let's harness the power of collaboration to get our creative and inventive juices flowing. Let's achieve progress by making room for failure and learning from our mistakes. And let's embrace fully diversity and make Drexel the most welcoming and inclusive environment for everyone. If we come together to do all these things, we will keep growing into a much better and more innovative Drexel that accomplishes even greater things for the world. And hopefully, we'll have some fun along the way. So thank you, and now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Paul Jensen, Executive Vice President, and Nina Henderson, Provost.
Thank you, President Fry. Welcome, everyone. It is so wonderful to be standing here in front of you after a year and a half apart. A year and a half is a long time. It's especially a long time when you're dealing with high levels of uncertainty. Since March of 2020, we've sought to make sense of, to protect, to control, to change what we could in the midst of significant and global crises and continuing technological disruption. This is a pivotal moment. These challenges, like most, will require diverse approaches and collaboration, not necessarily agreement, but coming together. As a university, we have an important role to play. We are a place of civil discourse for asking questions and seeking solutions, But we are not just a university. We are Drexel University. We are built on a history of inclusion and partnership, on technological firsts, and on an entrepreneurial spirit and work ethic that drives us to dig in and do the hard work that needs to be done. But you can't rest on reputation alone. And we have work to do to remain the university that we're known to be and to become more. This will be our focus on the academic side of the university, coming together to build the systems and infrastructure needed to adapt more rapidly, to drive innovation, incentivize partnership, and to better support our students, faculty, staff, alumni, and partners. In just a minute, you'll hear from 3 faculty who are among Drexel's many leaders driving innovation and progress across campus and the world. Each brings unique insight into the challenges we face and what it will take for Drexel to lead the change that is needed. And each is a true collaborator at heart, welcoming colleagues, students, partners, and the community to join in the effort. Sherelle Barber is a social epidemiologist whose work focuses on the role of structural racism in shaping health inequalities. An assistant professor in the Dornsife School of Public Health, she is also the inaugural director of the school's Ubuntu Center for Racism, Global Movements, and Population Health Equity. Genevieve Dion is a design scientist, professor of design, and director of Drexel's Center for Functional Fabrics. Her transdisciplinary research at the intersection of design and science explores advanced manufacturing of functional fabrics for the development of complex, interconnected textile systems. And Franco Montalto is a professor of civil and environmental engineering whose work promotes urban climate resilience through community-responsive solutions. A leader of Drexel's Climate Year initiatives, Dr. Montalto is also director of the North American hub of the Urban Climate Change Research Network. I look forward to hearing from Professors Barber, Dion, and Montalto share their perspectives and experiences on innovating and driving change now and in the future. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, but it is what drives our human need to create meaning, to find purpose, to drive progress. We have an opportunity and an obligation to make the most of this moment and leverage Drexel's unique strengths to advance the university and contribute to the greater good. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Barber to the podium to begin the keynote portion of the ceremony. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Provost Jensen, and welcome to everyone in attendance today. I actually want to begin this speech with an acknowledgement that the land on which we are gathered are the ancestral lands of the Lenape people, whose presence and resilience in Pennsylvania continues to this day. We all must take this time to recognize the histories of land theft, violence, erasure, and oppression that has us here today. As President Fry mentioned earlier last week, our country reached another grim milestone in the trajectory of the COVID-19 pandemic. 700,000 deaths and counting. And just a week prior to that, we surpassed in this country the absolute number of deaths reported in the US during the 1918 influenza pandemic. While it is true that influenza killed 1 in 150 Americans in 1918 compared to 1 in 500 Americans over the last 18 months, this is still a staggering statistic that I fear we have brushed past with collective indifference in an attempt to rush to a sense of normalcy, however artificially contrived. I also fear that we have forgotten that the pandemic's toll has been far from equal, that Black, Latinx, and Indigenous communities have shouldered a disproportionate burden the drivers of which are rooted in long-standing legacies of racism, white supremacy, exploitive capitalism, and other forms of oppression, and the consequences of which will be felt for decades to come. Quite frankly, 2020 and 2021 have been anything but normal. The last 18 months represent an inflection point in which a series of seemingly unrelated events, a global pandemic, multiple instances of state-sanctioned violence against Black women and men, mass killings of Asian Americans, chaos and unconscionable violence at our southern borders, historic weather events caused by climate change, and visible and violent displays of white supremacy have forced open the eyes of many who had unwittingly, but too often willingly dismissed and ignored the deadly consequences of racism and other forms of oppression. The year 2020 and 2021 have brought into sharp focus what so many scholars have been saying for so many years. It has been a year of hypervisibility in a field that has more often than not sidelined and sometimes silenced these ideas, deeming them marginal at best explanations of the truncated lives and the too often violent deaths that have plagued Black Americans and other marginalized racial groups in this country for over 400 years. Philadelphia is a microcosm of this reality. From W.B. Du Bois's 1899 documentation of the health of Black Philadelphians residing in the 7th Ward in his landmark study, The Philadelphia Negro, to life expectancy inequities upwards of 20 years now across neighborhoods separated by short distances, to documented inequities in COVID-19, from deaths to vaccination rates, racial health inequities in our city are persistent and stark. In April of this year, the Centers for Disease Control declared racism a public health crisis, and as of today, over 200 cities and jurisdictions have declared racism a public health issue, up dramatically from 5 prior to 2020. Naming the issue is a first step. Notably, Philadelphia is not on that list. The questions before all of us, as we as individuals and as a university contemplate and reflect on what this moment means, are not merely technical ones. In fact, the technical ones may prove to be the easiest ones to answer. The real questions of this moment are deep ones that must be answered with both our heads and our hearts. The issues are complex, interlocking, and embedded within the brick and mortar and social fabric of our city, our nation, and our world. The solutions, therefore, cannot be mere Band-Aids on the gashing wounds of entrenched inequities. They must be bold and audacious and rooted in a deep sense of the collective and shared responsibility to right the wrongs of the past. The real question is, how do we honor the dead? Our response at the Dornside School of Public Health is the launch of the Ubuntu Center on Racism, Global Movements, and Population Health Equity. I am grateful to students who had the vision and foresight to request a center like this at our school, grateful to our dean, Ana Diaz-Rue, for supporting every step of the process, and grateful to an amazing group of faculty who have been a part of the planning process, Dr. Irene Hedden, Dr. John Rich, Dr. Leah Shanazi, and Dr. Lonnie Tabb, as well as our Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism Fellow Patrice Farquharson, and Tanisha Barnes, our staff representative. We've also begun to bring on an amazing staff that will help support the center's work. Ubuntu is a South African principle that I learned during my time teaching and conducting research in Brazil from Marielle Franco, a queer Afro-Brazilian scholar, human rights activist, and local politician who was brutally assassinated at the age of 38 in March 2018 for speaking truth to power. Through her work, she taught me, and she's teaching us, that Ubuntu, I am because we are, is both a way of being and a call to action. It is not an anemic commitment to unity without accountability and justice, but rather a radical act of solidarity rooted in our shared humanity, unapologetic truth-telling, and a commitment to bold collective action that dismantles oppressive systems, disrupts narratives, and dares to imagine and build the just and equitable world we all deserve. Ubuntu connects us to a long lineage of transformative social movements, locally, nationally, and globally, from which we draw strength, insights, and inspiration. At the center, we have outlined several core values and tenets that represent the Ubuntu approach to anti-racism in scholarship and action that we believe will help us eliminate racial health inequities and advance population health equity. First, we are committed to a human-centered approach that recognizes that racism and other forms of oppression strip us all of our humanity. We are also committed to centering the communities most harmed by racism, the very communities who have been fighting against these systems for decades, even centuries. We recognize that embedded within racially marginalized communities is innovation, the ability to make ways out of no way, and the power for transformative change. This work also requires that we unite a diverse set of partners with a range of expertise, but not merely the expertise confined within the walls of the ivory tower, the expertise that comes from lived experience and a knowledge of the issues that will accelerate anti-racism solutions. Finally, our work is propelled by a radical imagination in the possibility of what can be. A just future, free of systems of oppression, full of new possibilities through bold collective action, and an equitable world in which all individuals and communities are healthy and thriving. The moment demands nothing less of us. In fact, our shared humanity requires it. We owe it to the ancestors that struggled before us and the future generations who will come along after us. So repeat after me, I am because we are. Who will refuse to continue along this deadly trajectory that has left so many communities barely surviving? Repeat after me, I am because we are. Who will speak up and out and dare to act? Repeat after me, I am because we are. Who will be brave enough to wrestle life out of death? Repeat after me, I am because we are. Who will dare to birth new worlds, new possibilities, and new futures? Repeat after me, I am because we are. The moment is now, the choice is ours, justice demands it, and our collective lives depend on it. Ubuntu, I am because we are. Thank you. And now I would like to welcome my colleague, Professor Dion, to the podium.
Thank you, Professor Barber. Very inspiring indeed. Trustee, President Fry, Provost Jensen, deans, distinguished guests, students, faculty, and staff, it's a pleasure to be with you today. 16 years ago, I saw an exhibition at the Cooper Hewitt Museum that changed my life. Extreme Textiles, Designing for High Performance. This was the first museum exhibition to showcase technical textiles and their applications. The exhibition showed examples of historical textiles juxtaposed against high-performance textiles, highlighting the successful collaborations between design, industry, and science. The curator points out that the primary difference between past and present textiles is that traditional techniques are now being used with new fibers in unconventional disciplines to develop technological solutions unimaginable even a century ago. Furthermore, that the future of design lies with these models of innovation as textiles push boundaries eliminate borders between traditional disciplines, and continues to be a foundation of our physical world. I saw the future of textiles that day, and I wanted to be part of it. This exhibition inspired me to pivot my career as a fashion and textile designer to that of a design scientist. 2 years later, I joined the Westphal College at Drexel, the perfect place to make that transition. A world-class College of Media Arts and Design at the core of a comprehensive university. Then and now, I believe that Drexel is uniquely positioned to train visionary designers, innovators, and researchers to advance knowledge through technology-infused education and experiential learning. Drexel's vision is fully aligned with the values of my own academic career, uniting design, innovation, and traditional research. Today, the Center for Functional Fabrics works creatively and collaboratively to address the complex challenges and opportunities in the field of smart textiles. Transdisciplinary teams work together to lead textile innovation and advanced manufacturing, creating new materials, new tools, new fabrication processes, and new products. Of course, the trajectory to get here was much different than I had imagined. While challenges remain many, inspiration abounds, and the rewards have been extraordinary. One of my valued senior researchers at the center said to me recently, "What is most interesting is what happens at the intersection of disciplines. Working across disciplines requires patience and persistence, open communication, and honesty above all else." Another research colleague at the center said, "Imagination isn't bound by current tools." Many of the tools to make these amazing textiles have yet to be invented. Our work often involves uncovering more challenges than solutions at the beginning and building our tools to realize our vision. Successful projects depend on complementary expertise, and many collaboration takes years to establish. Great collaborators respect each other's processes and, in turn, enable discoveries at the edge of discipline. 10 years ago, it seemed unimaginable that a student would pursue an undergraduate fashion design degree to go on to a PhD in material science and engineering, and furthermore, to embark on a career that continues that trajectory. Now, students from many fields have come through the center, through co-ops, undergraduate studies, master's and PhD programs, and many have gone on to exciting careers in places such as Nike, Facebook, Adidas, and of course, at the Center for Functional Fabrics. This is happening because this collaborative, transdisciplinary approach is what our world needs as we seek solutions to complex challenges. It's what led me to pivot my own career years ago and what drew me to Drexel, where one can find the structure and at the same time the flexibility to enable students to find unique paths to pursue goals at the boundaries of disciplines. At Drexel, we foster future leaders to work collaboratively and fuel innovation at the intersection of design and research. And now, I'd like to invite my colleague, Professor Montalto, to the podium for his remarks.
Good morning. Thank you, Professor Dion. It's an honor to be with you all today. For those of you who don't know, 2021 was declared Climate Year at Drexel. And over the past 9 months, our community has been working hard to realize the goals that we set for ourselves. We have integrated climate-focused projects into new and existing courses. We've initiated internal conversations about operations and sustainability. We've convened more than 100 external stakeholders to discuss climate resilient strategies for the greater Philadelphia region. Personally, I had the opportunity to develop the first ever climate and sustainability primer for our first-year engineers and worked with teams of Drexel and alumni continuing education students to help Mid-Atlantic communities prepare for extreme precipitation. For the first time, we also measured Drexel's own sustainability performance, earning a bronze rating from the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, and we were invited to join the University Climate Change Coalition, a distinguished collaboration of Research One universities that have committed to climate action. I think it's fair to say from these and other initiatives that we've implemented this year that Drexel has made an impact regionally, domestically, and internationally as an institution focused on this challenge. It's been incredible to watch the Drexel community rally around a common goal for 1 year. But I ask you today, imagine what we could accomplish if we made this project permanent. Already we have social scientists, engineers, designers, technology specialists, entrepreneurs, media strategists, public policy experts, natural and health scientists, and so many more with the skills to develop meaningful collaborations with community, to co-develop community responsive strategies, to get these strategies in turn in front of decision makers, and then to evaluate their impact. Just as important, we've developed an incredible team, the Climate and Sustainability Working Group, with the skills and will to nurture these critical collaborations. Allow me to put forth 3 strategies drawn from my own work on flooding that demonstrate how faculty in particular can align our teaching, research, and engagement activities with the climate change needs so urgently needed by society. Step 1, explore the full complexity of the problem. A community can flood because of extreme precipitation, an overflowing river, a coastal storm, or simply because we paved over the natural landscape. If our graduates are to develop realistic solutions to this problem, they need to study more than just simple hydrologic science. They need to understand land use change and implications of upstream development on downstream communities, and how these and other dynamics will evolve in time as the climate also changes. They also need to look deeper to explore why minorities, the elderly, renters, non-native English speakers, and those with mobility challenges are disproportionately impacted. Indeed, the problem is really to address how do we build resilience against this persistent backdrop of US inequality. Step 2, conduct applied and stakeholder-driven research in the most vulnerable communities. Researchers in my classes and in my lab have been working with watershed communities, water utilities, local governments, and climate scientists to study not only storms like Ida and Isaias before it, but the full range of potential flood-causing events that could occur in our climate. Incorporating these scenarios into models, we then engage community members in the development of truly robust solutions. But we intentionally do this work in places like Camden, New Jersey, and Eastwick, Philadelphia, communities that are highly vulnerable but do not always have the resources to undertake such work on their own. Students learn the science, but as important, they learn the merits and value of a participatory and truly collaborative approach. Step 3, cross-sectoral knowledge sharing. We brought residents of these communities to the Academy of Natural Sciences to view the Drowning World exhibit. We shared our place-based scientific findings with city council members, state and federal congressional reps, and we've been invited to present broader insights about our methodologies on national webinars attended by thousands of practitioners, creating even more opportunities for collaboration. Colleagues, climate change is amplifying the social, ecological, economic, infrastructural, and health challenges that you already know and study. Let's complement our teaching of classical theory in these areas with immersive learning experience and applied research activities that will force us and our students to confront both the constraints and the opportunities that lie between us and a much more sustainable, resilient, and equitable form of development. Let's ask communities what they need to know. and build them and other partners into our research proposals, shortening the time required to go from benchtop study to pilot. Sure, applied research can be high risk from a tenure and promotion perspective, but I'd argue that climate change poses higher risks to all of us at this period of great uncertainty and rapid transition in our world and in higher education. Students, while it's by no means your responsibility to carry us forward in this next phase of our transition, I must say that the efforts of the Undergraduate Student Government Organization, together with Fossil Free Drexel, the Drexel Sierra Club, and so many other students, were critically important in getting us started on this effort. We need you to keep up the pressure while remembering to incorporate climate considerations into your own projects, theses, and dissertations. To the Drexel administration, note that the 75 or so students who participated in our recent case competitions identified these specific experiences as some of the most influential and important ones they've had at Drexel so far. To continue to have this impact, we will definitely continue to need to evolve as an institution. But imagine, as we go through this process, how it will feel when students come to you that they chose Drexel not only to become a top-notch scientist or engineer, but because they knew that this was the place where they would get immersed in real-world problem solving in specifically this area and related areas, starting in their first year. In the international climate negotiations referenced earlier, the word ambition is used to describe a country's commitment to cut greenhouse gas emissions over time. As you know, Drexel has also used the word ambition to describe Anthony Drexel's goal of a university that is determined to change the world. I'd like us to this year make a merging of these two forms of ambition our goal. Drexel's ambition must be to deliver research and learning experiences in support of global climate ambition. We have the breadth and depth of knowledge to do this. We have the leadership, we have the relationships, and I'm confident that we'll discover that we also have the will. Thank you.
Thank you to our keynote speakers for sharing your time with us today and for those inspiring words. Another round of applause for our speakers. This university exists to create new knowledge, to better society, and to educate an outstanding group of students, which is represented by several student organizations. I would like to welcome two of their leaders. Jared Watson is a student in Westfall's accelerated BS MBA track, pursuing a bachelor's degree in entertainment and arts management and a master's in business administration. He is president of the Undergraduate Student Government Association. We will also hear from Matthew Shirley, a PhD candidate in biomedical engineering, recipient of the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship, and president of the Drexel Black Graduate Student Union. Following our two student leaders, I would like to invite Dr. Kevin Owens, Associate Professor of Chemistry in the College of Arts and Science and Chair of our Faculty Senate, to the podium to share his remarks. Jared?
Good morning, everyone. Growing up, my mom would always tell me to be the change that you want to see in the world. And it took me a really long time to recognize that change is not some monumental, unreachable concept. Through serving the student government for 4 years, I have seen small moments of action and service blossom into something much larger, meaningful change and real community impact. A while ago, feels like it was forever now, a friend and I were talking about how we could increase student participation in the voting process. Fast forward, after a lot of collaboration with administration, Drexel closed at 2 p.m. on Election Day as a part of our Drexel Votes campaign. This year, we're working to embolden that initiative with a day of service to fully recommit this university and ourselves to civic engagement. More recently, we had a single student come to us and ask that we use our platform to address sexual assault on campus. Couldn't agree more. Today, we have a committee of roughly 30 people from diverse student groups working together in order to create programming that destigmatizes the conversation around sexual assault, educates individuals on the topic, and ultimately brings student groups together to say that we will not tolerate such violence on our campus. We've changed the world, even if the world is simply our own campus. Those moments wouldn't have been possible without an intentional and dedicated commitment to collaboration amongst all of the groups that make Drexel, Drexel. So, to my fellow students, trustees, administration, faculty, staff, I look forward to working together with all of you throughout the academic year as we drive change to create a Drexel that we all believe in. Thank you.
Good morning. As a representative of the graduate student body, welcome back to my fellow returning graduate students, and a very special welcome to the new Drexel graduate students, which includes the PhD students, the professional doctorate students, the master's and certificate students, and the accelerated degree students. The mere fact that you have decided to either start or continue your graduate education here at Drexel is a testament to your resilience in the face of the constant trials and tribulations of the past couple years. At this moment, if you are able, I ask that for 5 seconds, you just take a deep breath. I applaud you. You are doing great. As the current Drexel Black Graduate Student Union president, I encourage you to identify and seek out the various systems in place to support you, whether that's your professors, your mentors, the various academic support services, or even student-run organizations like the Graduate Student Association, or like mine, the Drexel Black Graduate Student Union, or DBGSU. Do not hesitate to make use of your resources. The university cannot prosper without the success of its students. And by default, the graduate college cannot prosper without the success of the graduate students. As a means of improving the Drexel experience for every student, Drexel recently released the Anti-Racism Task Force's final report, a report a year in the making, putting forth an actionable commitment by Drexel to alter the culture and climate of the university in order to confront systemic inequities and injustices. I encourage you all to read it, discuss it, and not only become active participants in its vision, but practice accountability with the systems in place here at this institution. Graduate students, as we embark into this new academic year, do so undeterred and with pride. Drexel's ambition is the success of all its students, and it can't wait. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Drexel 2030, Designing the Future, the title of our new strategic plan. Today we heard from 3 faculty leaders here at Drexel, each one of them designing the future in their own way. Each of them working on problems that are critical to our world and having an impact. But that should not be surprising to any of us. All of us who choose to teach have an impact on the future. Over the last year, we have watched, with what should be amazement, at the development of not one, but multiple vaccines against SARS-CoV-2 in record time. I'm not sure we all appreciate the science, the messenger RNA technology behind the leading vaccines, but it is not just science that is done by itself. It is the work of many individuals over a long period of time, and most often working quietly, often behind the scenes. I was listening to a Radiolab podcast recently about Maurice Hilleman. His is possibly a name that is unfamiliar to you, but his work is attributed to saving perhaps 8 million lives a year. He was a vaccinologist who worked for most of his career at Merck right here in Pennsylvania. Over his long career, he and his team developed over 40 vaccines, including 8 of the 14 vaccines we all get as children, including measles, mumps, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and chickenpox. He carried around a list in his pocket of diseases that needed to be conquered. Yet even with all of this success, he was an incredibly humble person. In an interview shortly before he died, Hilleman pondered, "Looking back on one's life, you can say, gee, what have I done? Have I done enough for the world to justify having been here?" When he died in 2005, Paul Offit from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia was giving a talk at the University of Pittsburgh to a group of 35 pediatricians, and he announced the news of Hilleman's death. None of the pediatricians present recognized Hilleman's name, but that doesn't make his work any less important. I applaud my faculty colleagues. Your work inspires me. I'm humbled to work here at Drexel with you. You have certainly done enough to justify being here. There are other important things we should discuss, but now is not the time, and here is not the place. I made a promise, but that discussion will occur soon. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Kevin. I want to thank all our speakers and all those who gathered today for Convocation, whether here on the Corman Quad or via the live stream. And I want to extend one last welcome to all our new and returning faculty, students, and professional staff. Thanks again for being part of this celebration today. I wish all of you the best for the new academic year. Thank you.